Did you like that body shot?
Hello and welcome back or to my channel. My name is Faiza Ramouni and this is going to be part 11 of the X-Files. Bismillah. Now I know what you're wondering. Faiza, why are we sitting here? I love seeing you by the green wall looking like an empress from the greatest world of worlds, you know? Thank you. General Lau is sleeping in that chair. My cat, General Lau, is sleeping in that chair right now. And I would rather relocate to the top of Machu Picchu than disrupt my cat's sleep. Now, I also know that Juns are saying to yourself, oh my goodness, you're wearing color and you look majestic. Thank you. I am wearing purple to match Le Purple folder, okay, which I got at Le Ward. I mean, it's true. So I have this. And the reason I'm pulling out the purple folder, which for the longest time, I couldn't even look at purple folders. Let me tell you that. I want to show you guys the part where, hold on, can I mark this out? Now, I wanted to highlight the part where it said about why I was being admitted. And it says patient at imminent risk of harming herself. That was really true. Like, your girl commits. She was going to go do it. By the way, I have to say right now, because I feel like a lot of people made comments about why I laugh so much through this. Like, laughter has always been the purest form of medicine for me. Naturally, the way my nervous system would regulate itself. So, no, I don't think that a lot of parts of the story are funny. I laugh because that is the way that I cope. Oh, I signed this form. Was me voluntarily admitting myself to the psych ward. I remember my mom and I hugging, and my mom was crying, and oh, I felt so terrible. Like, oh my God, because like you're the cause of your parent crying that way. It was at that moment I actually thought to myself, Alhamdulillah. It's a horrible thing to say, but I was like, Alhamdulillah, Baba's not here. Allah yarhamu. So at least he didn't have to see what happened with Pan. He didn't have to face what had happened with us. What I was doing at that moment, having to be admitted to a psych ward like that. It was just, yeah. I hug my mom. There's a knock at the door, and it's two men that are coming to escort me to the hospital. And the whole thing felt so unreal, you guys. So unreal. They take me out of the room, walk me down the hallway. We get past the reception area, get into the elevator, and like at that point, I knew my freedom was gone. It was gone. And I could run away, sure, but they were going to come get me. They would come get me. The outcome would have been the same. I was going to be admitted. Get escorted to a Jeep. One man sits in the back with me. Other guy drives. And at this point, I see my mom outside, and my mom's waving, and I'm waving, and we're both crying. And I'm just feeling so, oh gosh, like such a horrible daughter. And we get to the hospital, which wasn't a very far drive. And I get checked in, but as I'm waiting to get taken, to the back, I have a moment where I'm sitting there with one of the guys, like the same guy that was sitting in the back seat with me. I took that moment for whatever reason to ask him. I was like, what made you want to do this job? And he replies, I wanted to help people. And then I asked him, I said, do you believe that there are people who you can't help? Because that's really what I felt like. Like there was no helping me. Thank you for taking me to the hospital so I don't, do something to myself. I don't know if I could say the word anymore. I think I was told that you can't say the word. Because I'd really been feeling that at that point. Like, is there any way to really help me right now? And I will never forget his response. He said, only if you don't want help. And for whatever reason, the way that he said it made me feel very much like, well, this is your responsibility. You do this. Like, you have to do it. You have to want the help. You have to take the help, right? You can't just have a desire to want it, but then reject it when it comes. And it made me feel even more responsible. Like, well, this was my choice. I had to, if I wanted out of this, if I wanted to make it out of this alive, I had to do the work. I had to want it bad enough. But also at that point, I didn't really want to be here. So I was kind of like, yeah, I get it's my choice, and that's exactly why I wanted to check out. That's terrible. But it's also what I was thinking. I'm like, yeah, Yep, exactly. Well, if you guys would have just given me a little bit longer, would have gone straight Roman in the tub. Oh, it's not funny. It's not funny. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Ugh, that hospital saved my life. Quite literally. Right after that door's open, I'm escorted back. And that's the final time I see that man. When you check in, you have to check everything in. Like your cell phone, everything. You're not walking around with your cell phone and being able to like text message people and all of that. Like you have to turn everything in. You're walking in with the clothes on your back, literally. And jewelry's removed, everything. Everything's removed. You just have your clothes on. Checked everything in. They put it in a brown bag, locked it up. Then I was taken to another room where you take it completely undressed so they can do a skin assessment. At that point, I had bruising, still like fingerprints. Like you can see his hand around my arm. So his arm prints like went all around my arm. And the bruising on my leg from the door having closed. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, please watch part 9 and part 10 of the X-Files. After the skin assessment, you get dressed again, and then you're taken to your room. When I got into the room, there was a window to my right, and I was like, well, I mean, as I'm sitting here, to the right, bathroom in front, bed here, and like just like a little night table there. The view was of just the back of buildings. There was no view. People couldn't see in, you could see out, but again, there's no view. You can't even see people. There's nobody around the back parts of these buildings like that. Because of the buildings and stuff, you can't really see much of the sky, but you can get a little bit. And I never missed the sky more than looking out that window. Oh boy. You take so much for granted, and then, oh gosh, I'm gonna get art ready, girl. We just started. You take so many things for granted, and then you see that little patch of blue, and you're like, oh, the sky. I never, ever, since being discharged, took a sky for granted. I always sit and stare and just look at it because I know what it's like to not see it in the way that we're so blessed to every day today. Oh, I need tissue. After I get into the room, I hope you could hear me. After I get into the room and I'm just staring out that window, I get a knock at the door, at my room door. And in enters an Arab doctor, Arab psychiatrist. And that was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that. Like I never knew that there were any Musrabs that would have ever been interested in psychiatry, mental health, because it was very taboo in our community. It still is. And I see him come in and he has 2 students with him. So he says, do you mind if I come in and I bring my students? And I'm like, I guess, like I had just been admitted, and the last thing I wanted to do was feel like a circus freak for students. So, but I didn't also know how to say no. So I'm just like, okay, yeah, I guess so. And he goes, you could say no. You don't have to say yes. And I'm like, ooh, I can? Okay. That's fine, Again, it was a second time since the moment of the process of being admitted and going through the hospital that I had had a person say, well, the choice is yours. You could do this if you want to, or you don't have to. You're in control. And I don't know how to explain it to you unless you understand how foreign that feels. I just started feeling like, can I describe this? Like God was pointing a finger. You're in control. You're in charge. You get to decide how this goes. Yes, no, maybe so. Yes, you can come in. No, you cannot. You decide. The choice is yours. And having that finger be pointed at me when I was so used to culture and family and expectations and pan and that's why I can't. It was an adjustment. I'm like, no, okay, yeah. And he sits down, the student stood. And he asked me, he says, so tell me what's going on. I remember for a moment feeling a little insecure to even open up or to say what was going on, because this is a Musrab guy, or at least an Arab. I didn't know if he was Muslim yet. It's an Arab guy. And I'm like, oh, I don't want to talk about what happened in case he goes off to gossip. But that little voice was like, you're in control. And if I really wanted help, I had to be honest about what had happened. So I explained to him, I'm a Muslim girl who had started dating, had premarital shish kebabbing with a guy that she thought she was going to marry. Then it turned out to be domestically abusive, decided to leave, and he threw my reputation through the floor and had accused me of cheating on him. And I still remember him asking me, well, do you believe that? Do you think that, a woman who's not a virgin is this and that? And I was like, well, what does it matter what I believe? They believe it, and my reputation's destroyed, and I can't do anything. I was just frantic. I mean, I just had a nervous breakdown. I kept going on, and every time he would pose a question, I would have an answer for it. Like, no, that's not going to happen. Unfortunately, the community's different. I'm done. My reputation's destroyed. And he asks me, he says, but what are you without reputation? Is that it? That's all you are, whatever your reputation is to these people? And I'm like, who the fuck is this doctor? This is how you help people? Like, you have to understand, I'm not thinking at this point he's asking all the right questions. Maybe the timing was a little off, but he was asking all the right questions. And the answers that I had were ones that were going to help me further down the line. But at this point, I'm like, who is this guy? Like, sir, leave. You need to go, So I just said to him, like, what do you mean? Who am I without reputation? What are you talking about? And he says, all right, well, you already seem to have it figured out. You said the community's like this and this is how things are. So I guess that's it for us right now. He gets up, walks right out with his students. Again, all I'm thinking is, what the fuck kind of doctor is that? Not thinking that what he was asking, the questions he was posing, were exactly what I needed to come to terms with. Subhanallah. Subhanallah. So he walks out, and I'm just adjusting to that. Like, what? Now, everything in the ward is very structured. So you have time that you eat, the time for therapy sessions, the time where you can just kind of have you time to walk around if you want to walk around. I will tell you that one of the things that I felt almost immediately was the freedom to just feel. I could go to lunch and go to the therapy session and walk up and down the hallway for as long as I wanted to, with a long face, being sad, crying even. And nobody was going to tell me I needed to smile, or that I needed to change my mood, or what's wrong with you? Why are you smiling? That's so weird. None of that. No judgment, nothing. I was just allowed to be sad. I was allowed to be. I wanted to be sad. I wanted to be mad. I wanted to cry. I wanted to sit in a numb expression for the next 2 hours. That was my right. I had a right to do it. It was such a freedom that I had never known. I don't feel like many people get to understand that, because you're always having to be on. And in the ward, you can be off. You can be off. Do you know that song, Crazy by Gnarls Barkley? You know the line where he says, I remember when I lost my mind, there was something so pleasant about that place. Even your emotions have an echo and so much space. That was that journey. I remember the freedom I felt in going crazy. Sounds weird, but it's also true. Again, that was something I'd never experienced before. When you're in survival mode, on autopilot, you don't know what it's like to just be, because you always have to be on, right? So that's what the hospital gave me. Going crazy allowed me to think more freely. Now, of course, that ability to just feel would change eventually in the way which we'll get to, because I was also taking pills that I wasn't somebody to feel like I wanted to become dependent on something. And here I was now being given pills that was not something I can just get off, right? So that was like, oh my gosh, I don't have a choice right now. I don't have a choice. I have to take this. I don't know if it was that moment that I had to, take the pill and, you have to prove that you're taking it, open your mouth and let them see that you have actually swallowed it. And then you're monitored for a little bit to make sure that you're not going to go throw it up or anything. That loss of control made me start feeling that bounce back and forth. Like I'm in control, but I'm not in control. I'm in control, but I'm not in control. It may have been that brought me down to a very stupid point. That while I'm in the hospital, I decide to go to one of the phones they had available there and call Pan. I know. Stop screaming at the screen. I could feel you. I could feel the judgments. I called Pan. And of course I understand now, because there was a time I was so unkind to myself for that. I'm like, what a fucking idiot you are. And I realized a level of that was Stockholm Syndrome, was the PTSD, was the longing for being seen by the person who hurt me. And I reach out to Pan, and what is he doing? Yelling and screaming on the phone. Your reputation's destroyed. You're done. He tells me how everybody's talking about it. Everybody even overseas knows about it, and my family in Palestine. And then he starts questioning why I'm calling him from a private number, which made me realize that the number had come in privately, which gave me some comfort because I'm like, at least he doesn't know where I'm at. I didn't want him to know that I had tried to leave and check out early and that I had ended up in the ward, because that's not something any Musrab girl would ever want to report. Ever. And I was like, please stop talking to people. Please stop telling people lies. You're ruining my reputation. And I just kept saying that over and over. And he's like, your reputation's done. I hung up the phone and have a panic attack. And I go to my room and I'm, again, like hyperventilating, having a full-blown panic attack. I didn't know that's what it was at that point, but I would find out later that was a full-blown panic attack. Now, I don't know if it was the sedative or I just passed out, but I know that I went to sleep because I was in bed. Woke up maybe a few hours later, I would think, because at that point I had to go to therapy. And I'm in the group therapy session and everybody's talking. And then after that, there's a single therapy session and I have a one-on-one with a therapist at this point. And I'm telling her everything that happened, everything that Pan said about my reputation, about being accused of cheating. And I'm like, oh my God, like, what do I do? How do I prove my innocence in all of this? Now, the interesting part is that the female doctor was saying some of the same things that the Arab doctor was saying, which was, well, why does it matter so much? What are you outside of your reputation, right? The thought of existing without a clean name, with everybody believing that I was this whore because I had shared my body with one man. I couldn't even understand how they couldn't get it. I'm like, how do you not understand how terrible that is? But she was just telling me a whole bunch of logic that I did not want to hear. Like, why would it matter if they believe that? If you know your truth, what does it matter? And then I had to start thinking about, like, yeah, well, why did it matter what they thought about me? If I knew the truth, why did it matter? And that was because at that point, it did matter to me, because I didn't like what it said about me. I didn't like the perspective it made others have about who I am and my character. I didn't like what it said about me as a woman, as a Muslim woman, as a half-breed. Because sadly, as a half-breed, you always walk around with Arabs in the community having this perspective that you're a major whore because you're not fully Arab, and there's no full-blooded Arab whores, God knows. So, the half and half part always made it, well, like, she's a whore anyway. And the fact that my mom had to walk around with that and labeling my mom this immoral woman when my mom is nowhere near that. What it said about my dead dad, Allah yarhamu. What kind of daughter did he raise? He's rolling in his grave. He's disappointed. It mattered to me. My reputation, no matter how it may have had its stains here and there because of other people, clean, innocent name was just destroyed. And I had this perspective like everybody always said I was a whore and I was this immoral woman, but nobody could ever prove that. Like I had never dated anybody, nobody was talking. Pan was the first person, right? So now here you have someone who's able to say, well, I had her and I this and that. Ugh. It made it feel like they had somebody they can lock all their gossip to and all the things they wanted to say, because it was like, well, if she did it with him, she probably did it with 40 other guys. So it mattered to me to have a clean reputation. It mattered to me. And without that, no, I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what that said about me. So I leave that therapy session thinking like, they just don't get it. They will not get it. And I get told that I have a visitor, and it was my mom, of course. My mom came to visit me every day. And I still remember like running down the hallway to go get to my mom. I just wanted to hold her and to just apologize to her. And that's what I did. I held my mom, we cried, and I'm like, I'm so sorry I did this to you. I mean, till today, moments I ask my mom, like, please forgive me for the pain that I caused you during that time. We like hung out for a little bit, eating crackers and apple juice. My therapist re-enters and she says, bends down, takes my hand, and she says, I don't want to hurt you or to bother you right now, but he's here. And for a moment, I'm like, Pan? And she's like, yes, he's here. He's waiting by security. They didn't let him in yet. And he was insistent on them asking me because he was certain, as he told them, that I would let him in. 100%. He had no doubts about that. I mean, of course, look at how bendable I was, right? I was like the Roman mob. I still remember I looked at her and I was like, should I let him in? Should I let him in? And my mom goes, no, you don't let him in. I don't want you to see this man. The doctor looks from my mom back to me and she says, what would you like to do? And I said, what do you think I should do? And she replies, I don't think you should see him. I don't think you should see him at all. A little bit hesitantly, I'm going to admit, I said, okay, tell him no. And I was told to, put him on a list that he could not visit, and they were not allowed to let him. I still remember when the doctor told me, you are so lucky to have gotten away from this guy. When she said that, all I thought to myself was, what kind of chaos did he cause in that lobby? Like, I knew how Pan was. So I could only imagine how he must have been cussing out the security guard and cussing out the doctors or anybody that was trying to communicate to him that he could not come back. My mom leaves, but not before making me promise her that I was not going to let Pan visit. I told my mom, I'm like, no, I won't. But one of the things I remember thinking is how everyone seemed to know where I should be going and what I should be doing and not be in touch with, or who I should not be in touch with, rather, except me. Like, I heard them. I know this sounds stupid, but this is the mind of a survivor of domestic violence. This is very important for people to understand that. Even if you get frustrated hearing it, it's important to understand the way survivors think and the reasons why. So even though everyone else is like, don't be with this person, don't do that, of course there was a part of the logic in me that was like, yeah, I know. I mean, obviously that's why I left. But adjusting to that leaving and understanding 100% that it was for the right reasons and that I should not go back and not be in touch with this person, that hadn't 100% clicked in yet. Otherwise, again, I would not have called him. I remember going back to my room that night and just crying, asking Allah, begging Allah to help me, to guide me, to tell me what I should be doing. What's next? Like, give me some guidance on this. Where do I go? Give me some hope, right? And I really needed that. I was very angry. I felt very, very angry, hurt. And I know a lot of people will say, well, why were you angry with God? What did God have to do with this? Well, because I felt like God was all powerful and he could change us in a second. In a second. He can silence their tongues and make them stop talking. So many things that I thought he could be doing that was not happening. Because the thing is that I was falling so hard and I was not sure I could get back up. I didn't even know how to get back up. There was nobody to ask guidance for in the community that would understand the culture, that would understand the faith, that would understand the cultural perspective, the way the people think. There wouldn't have been anybody there that could understand that. So who could guide me but truly understand what I was going through? And the worst part about it was that I had never seen another woman get up from the position I was in. Never. She either got married to her abuser, got married to some other guy overseas, they left town to start a whole new life and a whole new identity, or went down a horrible path of abusing drugs and alcohol and all of that, or checked out early, which is what I tried to do that found me in the ward. So I had never seen anybody get up from that position and just keep on moving in the same place and around the same people that were hurting them. I'd never seen that. So I'm begging Allah, like, I need your help right now. You need to tell me, how do I do this right now? How do I do this? Reputation, destroying a woman's reputation is the end of a woman in the Muslim culture. It's the end. And they know that. They know exactly what they're doing and why they target her reputation. Because they know that'll be it. That'll be it. Until today happens every single day where a guy will leverage a woman's V card, her virginity, against her to say, hey, let me slut shame her, right? That's the same. It's cancel culture. They're the originators of cancel culture. All right. And so they knew exactly how to destroy a woman. Sadly, with the way the community is so tribalistic and all the men support each other and all the women support the men, and there's no support for women like myself. All right. And I knew that at that point. So the only person I could turn to was God. So that's why I was angry and stuff, because I'm like, you're the only person I can turn to. I need your help. Help me. And that night I'm crying and crying and crying. And I fall asleep. That night, I experienced something that until today, I cannot explain. I really wish that I could share it with you guys, but I believe that certain things are really between you and Allah, and that's just how it is. But the best thing I can tell you is that I experienced something where, I'm going to cry. Something that tells me that God is real. God is 100% real. And there are so many things that we can't explain or understand in this world, but those are the truest things out there. I wish... Oh gosh, I wish I could... It was so beautiful. It proved to me that there is something out there, and that if you turn to him, he will answer. And it may not always be the answer you want to hear, okay? But it is the answer you need to hear. And you have to free your mind. I was being told what I had to do. Why I'm here, what my purpose is, why everything was happening. And there was no judgment, no criticism, no persecution, the way that I was being treated in the Muslim community. That did not happen at all. It was subhanallah. It's like falling from a building and being caught in a safety net that's being held by God. And you can't explain why that would happen, but it happens. And, oh gosh, I was being shown that my purpose and I were completely unaligned. And I had nobody to blame but myself. Truly. I had nobody to blame but myself. I chose to deviate. I chose to be distracted. I chose to be in the relationship with Pan and to continue despite that intuition telling me to leave. I chose it. It was on me. And I was not being given an excuse. I was being given a redirection. God was saying, you are off track. and this is how you're going to get back on. And I had to be patient enough, strong enough, willing enough to see it to the end. That's what I was being told. And it was terrifying, beautiful, life-changing, but terrifying. Even though I wasn't exactly shown how it was all going to happen, I was shown an end goal, and I had to get there. Even if I didn't know exactly at that moment how, I knew I had to get there. And I knew I needed to be stronger to get there. So I woke up the next morning. I had a therapy session, and I remember I couldn't explain it to them, but even they had said, there was something looks different about you today. There was a point where I thought, I'm like, well, is it the pills? Is it possible that they worked that quickly? I mean, it's not logical that it would happen, but maybe I'm one of those rare cases and that happened. Or a reprogramming in my brain, because when you do have a nervous breakdown or you suffer from PTSD, the brain can have a little bit of a reprogram there. So was it possible that that was the reprogram and I was being shown a new download of what I needed to do with my life? Maybe. I know what I experienced. I know what it was. And I know that it changed my perspective. So much so that a little while later, I get notified that I'm being discharged. It turns out that I didn't have insurance, which I didn't. I didn't have insurance at that time, and the hospital can only keep you for a few days. And then they did not want to discharge me. I was supposed to stay for a month, but again, the insurance made it an issue. But at this point, after the experience I had, I saw it as God's way of saying, get out. I already told you what you have to do. You simmered on it. Now it's time to go. And so I have a groups therapy session first, have my other soul therapy session, get my medication, and then I'm getting ready to gather up my stuff to be discharged. Not much to gather, like toothbrush, stuff like that. Grab my stuff, go towards the front door, and most of the patients were there. And it turns out like that's a little routine that they do, like a farewell, goodbye. I go around, bye guys, bye, and I still remember some of them seemed like envious that I was leaving, while others were just like, poor girl. She's going back out there. And it's horrible out there. Say bye, turn to my therapist, one of the therapists that had been in the group therapy sessions. And he hands me like my clear bag with my stuff in it. And he asks me, he says, who's in charge of your happiness? And I said, me. And he asked me again, who's in charge of your happiness? And I said, me. And then he asked me a third time, just as he's putting his hand on the door to open it for me. He says, who's in charge of your happiness? And I said, me. And he said, now go find it. And that never left me. Never. Here I am at 40. I still think about that. The responsibility I have to my own life, that it is my decision, how I choose to wake up every morning, to show up every day. That is my choice. Nobody else. I get discharged. I walk down the hallway, get out, meet my mom, and I get into the car. We shared a very long hug. And my mom goes, how about IHOP? Because my mom knew that I love IHOP pancakes. Till today, I love IHOP pancakes. My mom's driving, and I'm like feeling good. I was like smiling. My mom's like, see, look, this helped you, and that's amazing. You took something negative and made it into something positive. And my mom starts going on about like, see, if you had waited a little bit longer, that would have happened even with the apartment. You have to trust God, and you have to do this. And my mom's intention was to lift me up, but it was just doing the opposite. And I started finding with every mile we were going, I started feeling myself going lower and lower and lower and lower. I'm like, gosh, I wish I was back in the hospital. And because I felt so badly about, putting my mom in that position, I went from smiling to very, very sad again. We get to IHOP, and also I was hoping that the pancakes would open my appetite because I didn't have an appetite at all. And when the food comes over, my appetite's gone. And my mom says to me, she goes, you're really going to ruin a beautiful moment like this? You're not going to eat your food, really? And that brought me right back to Pan. I remember looking at my mom and then just looking at the pancakes and being like, this again? It took me leaving the hospital first day of being out and being around my mom to realize that one of the many reasons I fell into the hands of Pan was because I was trying to escape that mentality that I had already been experiencing at home. And everything he had done and how familiar it was, and the emotional and psychological manipulation and abuse was something that I had experienced at home. I'd already had that practice there. And I started thinking like how at times it felt better to be around Pan than to be home. My mentality was, well, at least he understands me a little bit better than they do. The pills were actually a blessing, really, because after a while of being on them, I'm not going to name what they were, but after a while of being on them, I didn't feel anything. No emotion, no sadness, no anger, no nothing. I felt like a zombie. I sometimes say that I was like zombified through that journey. That's very true. I didn't have any emotion. If I felt sad, I could feel it in the pit of my stomach, but no emotion came out, no tears came out, no, like, it would be like being sad and like, oh God, that's so sad. Oh my God, why am I feeling that? Oh, that's terrible. Oh well. And when I was angry, same thing. It'd be like, oh my God, I'm so mad. Why is this person doing that? Oh well. That's as much emotion as I could possibly muster up from those pills. They did not let me feel anything. Unlike being in the hospital, when you're on those pills, or maybe you're just not feeling the best, you don't want to smile, you don't want to be happy, you don't want to be anything other than just existing in a room, always be asked, what's wrong? Why aren't you smiling? What's the problem? Are you thinking about him? Everything okay? And sure, the place came from, a good intention of someone who loves you, who wants to make sure that you're okay, right? But that's not how it translated at that point. At that point, I just didn't want to smile. And then having to explain why I didn't want to smile, and then having to explain even more of a reason why I'm feeling that way and why it even exists, was exhausting. It was exhausting. Just because people can love you doesn't mean that they know exactly how to be there for you, right? You have to advocate for yourself. But at this point, I didn't know how to advocate for myself. I feel like what would have helped was the therapy I was supposed to be doing twice a week. Because of the diagnosis, I was supposed to do therapy twice a week, especially to help me with the PTSD. And I had no insurance, so I could not afford it. I had to just do it alone, which was hell. The pills helped. Because, as I said, I didn't feel anything. So the less that you feel and the less you can actually act on, well, the easier it is somewhat, right? But it didn't only take away my ability to feel through my emotions naturally, it also took my appetite. Like, I had no appetite. I know it's going to sound crazy to say this, but I didn't eat at all. Like, I drank Gatorade, I had smoothies, but I didn't eat any solid food at all, which was something Nadine paid attention to when we met. And comes by, picks me up, and Nadine was like insistent that we go grab something to eat. And I was like, no, I just can't eat anything. Let's just get something to drink. And so we ended up getting a coffee and going for a drive around like downtown, just kind of doing our old drive, right? We're driving around downtown. Who do we see? Fucking Pan and his little minions. That woke me up. That woke me up for sure. Because I remember, even if I didn't have a jump scare, I was still like, oh my gosh, what? He's there? Like, I was you could feel the adrenaline rush. Nadine completely plays it cool. My gosh, she was a pro. She played it cool, just kept looking straight, tried to act like, she didn't really see anything. She's like, Fi, relax, don't even look, don't entertain anything, just keep looking straight, look out the window, act normal. We're all the way in the right lane there and all the way in the left. And so we still had some space. Nadine goes, the moment I get a chance, I'm going to turn. And I'm like, okay. And she goes, Faiza, let me see your phone. Nadine turns down the street and we lose Pan and his fucking minions. I hand her my phone and Nadine found out what many of you have suspected, which is that Pan was tracking my phone. Okay, he had not only known my location, but he had access to my iCloud account and to everything connected to my iCloud account. He had access to all of that since the moment he enabled and set up my phone. At that point, it was over a year ago, that day in the Indian restaurant, that I gave him my phone to do it. Here you go. Yeah, I trust you. And Nadine goes, I fucking knew it. I fucking knew he had access to your phone. And remember, guys, at this time, I didn't know what that meant exactly. I didn't truly understand it, right? So there's Nadine explaining to me that he had access to this, he had access to that, to your photos, to your, all of that. And I'm just like, it was shocking. It was shocking. Completely shocking to have no privacy. Thankfully, Nadine, who knew her way around the phone, turned off the location and also told me to change my iCloud password. As I'm about to change my iCloud password, okay, I get a notification on my phone that somebody was trying to access my iCloud account. And I'm like panicking, like trying to change. And we go around the block, park somewhere remote, and Nadine's going through the phone and making sure that everything is safe on it. And oh my God. What an invasion of privacy. What an invasion of privacy. And it wasn't like it was for a day or two or a week or a month or 6 months even. It was much longer than that he had access to everything. To everything. You would have thought that that was enough to make me never want to look at this person ever again. Sometime in mid-October, I ended up having a moment of weakness and calling Pan. I still remember he answered immediately and then requested to FaceTime me. So I answered the FaceTime call and he's there, trying to be charming. He's telling me that he spoke to PD, right? Which, by the way, the fact that not one of you made a comment about the name prosthetic dick, it's a little hurtful to me, to be honest. Not one of you was like, Faiza, what a perfectly befitting name. But for those of you who don't have my sense of humor, we will call him Tamir. Okay, Tamir. Pan tells me that Tamir said that we had shish kebabbed. Which only made me resent myself even more, because I'm like, girl, you knew better than to go up to his rooftop. I don't care. Nobody's going to believe you were there in the community. They're going to say that you must have gone to the apartment and you must have done this and you must have done that. Like, you know that. And I did. And I still went because I chose to trust him. I trust him. Yeah, well, look what that got you, honey. Right? Not that that takes accountability away from the other person. But again, I'm in control of myself. Right? I could have made better choices myself. Nobody's responsible for those choices besides myself. I was very angry at myself. Very angry at myself that I had kept myself open to being gossiped about in that way. But also I felt angry at, well, just because you can gossip about that and you can run with that lie, does it mean that Tamir should? That Pan should? That all of those jinn should? No. No, that is not okay. That is not okay. I remember feeling so much anger. So I actually hung up on Pan. I was like, bye. And I called Tamir. And I said, Tamir, why are you telling everybody that we shish kebabbed when you know that we didn't shish kebab? Why are you saying that? And he says to me, I never said that. I never said that. That's them playing high school games, and I'm not playing high school games with anybody. All right, you know the truth, I know the truth. That's what matters. So I'm like, what is going on? And so I tell him, well, could you call Pan and say that? Because I don't want people believing something like that when it's not true. If he's the one lying, tell him to stop saying that. And he says, I'm not getting involved in that. I already said these are high school games. I'm not getting involved in, okay? Click. He hangs up the phone. Do you see why he's called prosthetic dick? I call Pan back and I say, what are you talking about? I just spoke to Tamir. Tamir said that never happened. He never said that you're playing high school games. Da, 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 da. And Pan starts laughing. And then I hear a whole bunch of other guys start laughing behind. And I hear two very distinct laughs that I knew very well. And that was Tamir in the back. And as I called him in the last part, Major Ballless friend, who was Pan's best friend and Tamir's cousin, who we'll call Rami, laughing too. So we're hearing two laughs in the background. Tamir, also known as prosthetic dick. I wish I had a real dick. And Rami, also known as major ballless friend, who was, I wish I had a pair of balls. And that's what their laugh sounded like to me. Like, oh my God, he has all these guys sitting right there. That means this fuck just answered the call with that other one there. They're hearing each other's conversations. Is this a game? When I heard them all laughing and pan on camera going like, stop them, like trying to hide. Then he moves the camera. I see them in the background standing there, all of them. Like a bunch of, I wish I could say the word. I hang up the FaceTime call and I fall to the floor and I was just sobbing. I was sobbing. I was embarrassed. I was disgusted with myself. I was broken. And when I'm down there, my face is in my hands, I see a flash, like a montage in movies, like when they show you all the different clips of how this person was hurt or rebuilt their life and all that. But for me, it was every hurtful thing said, done, acted on from the moment I met Pan until that moment on that phone. No filter, no rose-colored glasses. I took them off. I slammed them on the floor. And my brain was showing me, look at who this person is. Look at what's happening. And when I got up from that floor, I swore I was going to get revenge against Pan and everybody that was involved in that or that had ever made me feel small. Now, granted, I knew that was going to be a lot harder to do living in his place, right? Living right under the same roof where he had full 100% access to me. Once again, I went to the family who couldn't help because they didn't have the credit, didn't have the means, all wanted to help, but they didn't have the means to do it. So I went to the family who could, the people who had the credit, and I told them what had happened. Many of them already knew. They knew that I had tried to check out early, that I had been admitted to the hospital, that I was going through it. They knew this. And I went to these people. I said, I know our credit's not good, but I give you my word, I will not do anything to risk your credit. I will pay whatever we need to be paying on time. Everything will be covered as it had been. Everything will be fine. But I need that help. I need help getting out of here. Would you be able to help me? And they said no. It's hurtful to even remember it. They said no. They were basically saying they would rather protect their credit than to protect me. And in turn, protect my mom. When someone leaves an abusive situation, especially when they're living under the same roof that their ex has full access to, safety becomes a matter of urgency, not convenience. If you're in this position, it should raise real concerns about that family member's loyalty, their values, and the depth of their compassion. Truly. Remember what I'm saying. Of course, everyone has a right to protect their finances. I mean, come on. But when you weigh the risk of credit line against the daily, emotional, psychological, physical risk that a survivor lives under being under the same roof, it should be clear that one risk is discomfort and the other is an actual danger. And what was even more heartbreaking about it is that they didn't have to give money. They had to give their trust, and they refused to give it. They were saying your freedom isn't worth the risk. And that's exactly what it was. Your freedom, your peace of mind is not worth the risk I take with my credit. And that betrayal, it hurt more than the one with Pan. Because from Pan, I expected cruelty. But you don't expect that from family. Because with family, you hope for safety. And you prayed to be rescued. And there I was being told, no, I'm not helping you in that way. So I fell into a little bit of a depression because here I was getting the strength and saying, I want to get my revenge, but I didn't know how to do it when I was fully accessible to him. and he could just show up. If he wanted to do anything, he could do it. We're right there. So I did what I was told to do that day in the hospital, which is I turned to Allah and I asked God for help. And I remember falling asleep, and once again I had a dream, or I call it a vision, and I was being told what to do. I was told that I had to start creating. And remember, I had already started creating. I was writing on a blog. I was doing things like that, but it was on and off as the wind blew, right? And there I was being told again, you have to create. I don't know what I'm creating yet, but I will let you lead me. And I know that you will show me what way that is. Which it came to me. Talk about the things that happened behind closed doors that was not discussed by anybody before, and show people that through comedy. As I've said before, that has always been the way I have regulated. If I could laugh about it, I could look at it. If I could look at it, I could talk about it. If I could talk about it, I might be able to change that.